Cafe Networking podcast promotes successful business experts. I'm Tom Rial, connecting people throughout the world from my podcast studio in Brazil. Joining us today from Nassau, the Bahamas, is Marcus Higgs. He's a communication coach for parents of preteens, 10 to 14 years of age. So Marcus, why do teenagers tend to pull back and desire more independence?
Hey, Tom, it's wonderful to be here. The reason teens pull away is because this is actually a natural part of human development. Think about it. They're nurtured as kids coming up and they're being pulled close by their mother. Nurturing energy says, I love you, you're supported. However, we are to be independent if we're to thrive and grow and be holistic.
Right.
So paternal energy, it comes along and it pushes you away. And it says, be independent. However, you are loved, you are supported from afar. Now, that's not the final stage of human development. Human development eventually says, it's interdependence. I will take care of me to be in service to you. If you take care of you to be in service to me. So eventually they're going to reach a stage where they're going to come back, but that's when it's understood that they can be independent and then contribute back to the whole. So it's just
I would say when I was a teenager, I think that the time span of wanting to become independent sort of was later in life.
Okay.
It was sort of graduating high school or maybe going on to college. But today, if we're talking about 10 and 14-year-olds, did they already want to leave?
Well, it's not that they want to leave. Adolescence it spans from 10 years old to actually early 20s, right? So they're coming into their adolescence, which is the stage of turning towards independence. So they're just starting that identity breaking. You're actually right. It's when you're later in your teenage years that you actually start to make a motion towards this. It's also worth noting that. It's also worth noting that in your early years of adolescence, that's when the identity starts to happen. So if you start to establish it then that's when it will actually keep them into their teen years. Like the reason we break away is because we start to lose trust of our parents.
Now, the identity. Do you see that's coming sooner than later? Because, the children today, I don't know if I want to call them children or teens, they're just open. There's just so much information. There's just so much available, which again, in years past, we didn't have that. So this overwhelming of information, is that part of the incentive for them to want to be themselves sooner?
Well, think about it like this, Tom, right? When you're a kid, you're really coming into this world and you're gaining your understanding or your worldview by what your parents are telling you. So everything's black and white, right? Yeah, you're perfectly right. With all this access to information, they are actually progressing in their understanding of the world. And they start to see that the world is not actually what their parents tell them it is. So actually around around the age of 12 is where you start to form skepticism, or you start to understand there's something outside of my parents' worldview. And you want to explore what that is. So you're actually right. People are actually starting to turn to figure out their own independence a bit earlier than they used to.
I don't have, my children are all grown up and older. I'm in the stage where I have grandchildren. And I'm now sitting in the bleacher seats watching my grandchildren interact with their parents, okay? And what I see very clearly that, and my grandchildren, one's 10, the other two are 13. And to that point, years ago, I would never have thought that kids knew anything. Kids always thought they knew everything, right? No, at some point they know everything. But what I've come to discover today, that somebody that's 10 years old actually knows a whole lot more than I know and that his parents know. So they really know a bunch. Because, in their couple years of school, they just learn so much and they know so much. I sort of feel dumbfounded.
The other day I was speaking with my nephew, and he started to tell me about the the war happening in the Middle East, the Palestine-Israeli conflict. And then he was telling me nuances that were going on, and he's only 10 years old. And I
Yeah.
asked him, I said, where did you get all this? And
Mm-hmm.
again, what he said was, well, social media,
Right.
going online and hearing the different conversations of what's happening.
No, so they actually do. They're exposed to everything. They're not just exposed to their backyard. And it's real stuff. Even, the curriculum in schools today are actually wide ranging. And everything's electronic, everything's high tech. So it's not that they're picking up books and looking at paper anymore. That's long gone. There's no more paper anywhere. So they're, the chat GPT, searching, that's just common everyday school practice.
It's the advent of technology, which is a blessing and a curse. I mean, I teach inside a class, and even yesterday, I was with my students, and they all have Chromebooks, meaning we're sitting there having a discussion. I have to instruct them when to close it so that we can be present. And then when they're not present, or not when they're not present, but when we have to do research, I ask them to open it up. And then each of them found different information on a different country that spoke French, because it was a French class. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they just have access to all this information. You're absolutely right, which is why we have to establish their character and their identity at an early age. So it's from the inside out.
Well, I think part of the problem of communicating with them is that they do know more than we do. It's just admitting that. And for parents to admit that their kids might be smarter than they are could be the first challenge.
I think there's a difference between being smart and then actually how to apply that information. That's what wisdom is, right? Mm-hmm. And wisdom comes with experience. So the thing is, no matter... Sorry, someone's just leaving. No matter how old the kid is, one thing they lack is how to apply that knowledge. Mm. They have access to... You're perfectly right. They have access to more knowledge, but there's some elements of humanity that stay the same. The knowledge that your life will be supported as you take care of other people in the society, right. That's one thing that kids don't learn.
Well, yeah, what you do, your coaching is for parents, right? You're not actually coaching the teenagers. You're coaching to the parent who has the challenge, right?
Yes, exactly. I'm a communication coach for parents of preteens, because I work with preteens in class all the time, but then I'm helping the parents open up the communication channel so the child gets to understand and know themselves.
So you're actually watching the fish. You're fishing in a very small pond, and you're watching the fish daily.
The fish being the preteens,
right?
Or who? Okay, yeah. No. I know the need of the kids because one, I read their journals, I see their journals, and two, I really do believe that education is going to change with the advent of technology. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of space for individualized learning. That said, the biggest impact we can have is at home with the parents. Right. Learning how to manage your emotions, learning how to build trust with themselves and with the world. That's what confidence is, confidere. And then learning how to, knowing their identity, knowing themselves and their character strengths. That's what we do. Virtues in action, knowing their virtues.
Well, and I can see what you're offering. It's a global situation. This is not local. It's cultural in a sense, but teens are teens, kids are kids.
I've been an international school teacher I've taught internationally rather for the past 15 years. Mm-hmm. So in South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Spain, and Thailand, but now I'm here in the Bahamas, and you're absolutely right. The human experience is the same when we go around the globe. So this is a far and wide-reaching message. Yeah.
Very good. Well, how can our listeners who are parents who may have a challenge from their teens find you?
If you go to marcushiggs.com, you can find more about the work that I do. Mm-hmm. Also, if you go to workshop.marcushiggs.com, you'll see the workshop that I have, mapping your family's virtues and values, because we're starting off with strong identity. That's where you start off. And I have other programs there. However, that's the first place to start. We start with a strong identity to show up for our kids. And you could also find me on LinkedIn, but marcushiggs.com is where it is.
So it's step by step, right?
Yes, sir.
So thank you for being here, Marcus.
Thank you, Tom, for hosting.
And for our listeners, it's Marcus Higgs, Marcus, the last name Higgs, Higgs, communication coach for parents of preteens. You can find him at his site, which is marcushiggs.com. Also find him on LinkedIn. Cafe Networking is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information at focusmi.com. Talk to Tom, talk to the world. Thanks for listening. Until the next time here at Cafe and Networking Podcast.